Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. Welcome to today's Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Finance Authority Special Meeting Agenda. Tuesday, July 28, 2021. It is 5:31 p.m. So I'm going to call to order. Due to the declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held pursuant to authorization from the government executive orders. Some or all the City Council members may participate in this meeting by teleconference as authorized by Executive Order N2920 issued by the Governor of California on March 17, 2020. Pursuant to the Imperial County Public Health Department guidelines, City Council meetings are now open. Public attendance at 100% capacity of the council chambers, and all persons entering City Hall will be required to wear a face mask. Public participation will continue to be available in the following ways. Members of the public are encouraged to watch the meeting via live stream at communityspectrum.org live at 6:30 p.m. or via the Calexico City Hall Facebook page at facebook.com City of Calexico CA. Members of the public will be able to make public comments in the following ways. 1, in person. 2, submit public comments via email by 2 p.m. on Wednesday, July 28, 2021. 2, our city clerk, G. Garcia, Calexico CA GOV, or via fax to number 760-768-2103. These comments will be read aloud during the meeting. So now we'll go roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Camilo Garcia. Here. Councilwoman Areola Fernandez, I'm sorry.
Here.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gloria Romo.
Here.
And Councilmember Raul Ureña. Is he here today? Is he joining by Zoom?
He is joining us by Zoom. Councilmember Ureña?
Councilmember Ureña? Okay.
He may be on his way. He advised that he will be arriving late.
Okay, thank you. We'll make a note of him when he arrives. Thank you. Okay, now will you, everybody please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the mission statement. Ready? Together,
we pledge to provide effective and efficient services in a courteous and respectful manner to improve the quality of life for all in our unique border community. Viva Calexico.
And I will do a short invocation. God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. As we gather here today, I ask for your guidance, wisdom, and respect for one another. May each of us speak with restraint to speak out when it is time to speak, and out and listen patiently and receptively when it's time to listen. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Next item is the approval of the agenda. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Second by Ms. Romo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. And then do announcements. These proceedings may be viewed on the City of Calexico website at www.calexicoca.gov the Friday following the council meeting. Community office hours with Mayor Moreno will be held by appointment. Please contact the City Clerk's office at 760-768-2102 to schedule an appointment. Public comments and public appearances, not to exceed 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the City Council on the special agenda items only. During the current state of emergency, public comments will be received in the following ways. 1, in person. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal slanderous remarks. Number 2, submit public comments via email by 2:00 p.m. on Wednesday, July 28, 21, at City Clerk's office at g.garcia@calexico.ca.gov or via fax to 760-768-2103. Any comments received during or after the meetings will be distributed to the City Council and retained for the official record. The City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action items, discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Do we have any public comments? No? Thank you. Moving on. We have discussion and potential action items. We have the City of Calexico Strategic Plan Workshop as presented by Reliance Public Relations.
Mayor Moreno,
Yes.
I want to welcome our guest today to the City of Calexico. We have our partners from Reliance Public Relations here with us. As we've discussed in our City Council meetings, they are taking the lead in preparing the strategic plan for the City of Calexico that we know it's long overdue. And today, they're coming to us to give us an update presentation on the work they've done in the past weeks, not only with the City Council, with staff, but with other members of the community. So with that said, I want to turn it over to Ms. Sue Geller and Mr. Bill Gay, who are going to be conducting the presentation today.
Thank you, Mr. Figueroa. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and I think I'll let my associate Sue Giller kick it off, and we're going to tag team it.
Yes. And before we get started, I did want to introduce you to some of our partners who have been very instrumental in doing this. Peggy Dale in the second row, and Heidi Gutierrez, who is with us as an intern this summer. She's studying public relations, and who is staying on because she's been doing such a great job. Not here is Bill Amadon, who many of you met in some of the sessions that we held with you, and also our fantastic graphic artist, who is a bulldog, and was the one who prepared this booklet for you, both to make it beautiful, but even more important, to make it easy to read and to use. So with that as a backdrop, let me start going through this. So I think it just is helpful to know why we did this, and clearly, as City Manager Figueroa said, it's been a long time, but really I think of this as a way of creating a course correction to stay true to your mission statement. This is your North Star in everything that we've done. So the process that we went through, just to go very quickly, our part in this was to facilitate it, to ask you questions, to encourage you to think deeply about things that are. And so we went through the process that you normally go through in a strategic planning process. We had you do an exercise called Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. We had the city managers do that. And then we came to the city council. Now, because of COVID, things that we would normally do and would be doing easily, we did very differently this time. And in some ways, the results were fantastic. So with your SWOT sessions, we did them individually with you each. We're just going through this quickly, but in the booklet that you have, the full amount of information that was gathered in the SWOT processes is located on page 15 to 21, if you want to take a look at it later. And I'm hoping that later you can look through it. And one thing that I failed to say is, really, this is your process. And so if you have questions or comments or things that we should discuss, please feel free. We're very informal. In fact, we appreciate your comments, because otherwise we may forget something that really matters to you.
One thing too, excuse me, we also know that this is the first time that you're seeing this booklet, and we So we're perfectly prepared, however you want to do it, to come back to a follow-up meeting with questions you have after you review it in depth. So tonight's going to be an overview and some discussion, hopefully, on some of the content, but we're willing to definitely come back at your behest and have another session.
So after the SWOT analyses, and I will tell you that we had them plastered up all over our office. We were living and breathing all of your thoughts for several weeks as we went through this process of putting the report together. After the SWOTs, we met in small groups with the department heads to talk to them more about the objectives. You know, the goals are the top of the pyramid, and then you want to do things that are going to make sure that they come to be realized. And so the next step is to develop the specific things that could be done. In talking with many of you, and because of our own background in strategic planning, we felt that it was very important to include the community. However, the constraints of COVID and social distancing made it very challenging to do that in a facility such as this. And so we came up with the idea of putting together a survey that could be distributed to the residents of Calexico. And I want to really thank Carla Lobata. Am I saying her name right? Lobata. Because without her help in designing this and putting it together in the utility bills, it couldn't have happened. The survey was put in the June, or it went out in May, so I guess that was the June utility bills. And she actually did the translation for us, so that we had it to encourage people to participate. Reliance offered 2 shopping sprees, $250 shopping sprees at Cardenas Market. We like to think that they cared about us because we were giving them something, but to be very honest, I don't know that that made any difference. The most extraordinary thing is that you had 400 people turn in their surveys. And even more extraordinary, in my mind, was that they went on to give comments. We'll get into that more as we go on, because that is such an amazing response. I think you had something like 8,200 utility accounts, and you had 400 responses. I don't know, we've done surveys before, and getting that many responses from any size group is enormous, but to have it here was really gratifying, and you should feel very complimented that your citizens are that caring. The thing that amazed me even more was that they were very kind. Many of them actually were grateful to have an opportunity to be asked for their opinions. So, so we took some time to analyze what we got, a tremendous amount of data, and that brought us here tonight with the copy you have before you. So I think the real highlights and the exciting things are that you had a lot of ideas. We know that, and not only did you have ideas, but despite the often argumentative tenor of the meetings here, there were a lot of agreements on the issues when we met with you one-on-one. The fiscal matters, however, the fiscal matters that you are already dealing with as a city, and the staff shortages are going to probably force you to extend the length of time it will take you to accomplish some of the things that are on your list. However, you have, over the past 5 years, dealing with some of the past 4 years, dealing with a lot of significant issues with finances and ethics and a lot of other problems that have cropped up, shown tremendous resolve, so that you have actually overcome a lot of the issues that you had, only to face additional issues now. But I think all of that bodes well for your ability to move forward. The other thing that we think is so extraordinary is that the residents of Calexico are eager to engage, maybe not at a meeting such as this one. And I don't know, I know that there are many people who make comments during city council meetings, but I don't think you could fit 400 people in here. And I don't know that you would have that many here or offering comments. So you should feel very good about that. Oops. Did I go to the next? Oops. Okay. So on page 29, this is just a sample of some of the comments that we made. It will be on pages 29 to 32 in your books. There are so many comments, and this is where Heidi Gutierrez was so helpful to us because she had to put all of these things into a very detailed, very lengthy spreadsheet.
She's lived with that, with the survey so much that if you ask her any question about the comments, she's the person we go to get the answers. So she has a real good feel for this.
Yeah, to me, any comments were sort of amazing because all they had to do to get in the survey, and let me explain also, the survey was such that there was a top to it where people could sign their names to be entered in the survey. We tore that off as soon as it came to us, and then we went on to read the survey. They didn't have to make any comments, but we left ample space in case there were desires to do that. And for me, the thing that was so amazing, there were some critical comments. There were things that people saw as issues of concern, but they were very issue-based. There were very few that were focused on individuals and personalities, and I thought that was a wonderful thing to experience. So what you have here, and again, we just wanted you to see what it was going to look like. This is on page 25 of the strategic plan, the draft strategic plan. And for members of the community, the city clerk does have a PDF of this that she will be posting on the website, so you'll be able to see the full thing as well. What we did, and I'd like Bill, if you could explain this a little bit better than me.
Our intent with the survey was to really identify what is important to your citizens and then how satisfied they are with the areas of importance. And so you have a measurement that you could find out of, things that are just a ranking of both. And even though we had 400 responses, which is an excellent response rate, but this should still be considered a snapshot of the attitudes of your residents at the time they took the survey, and also since they were submitting them for a gift certificate of tardiness, you obviously had citizens that wanted to win a gift certificate. So that's a little bit of that's something that has to be factored in too, in terms of the audience. And so even though we asked age and we asked length of residence in the survey, we felt that it would be better. And you have that data, and you have it on thumb drives in the city manager's office if you want to dive into it. But we felt that the most important thing for the strategic plan was really what the aggregate group of residents felt in terms of their satisfaction levels and their importance levels. And so that's what you have on this. And this is a ranking that we put together based upon a scoring system that we were able to develop that kind of helped us compare it. So if you look at it...
and while Bill's talking, let me just mention that...
Fire chief is sitting out there. Fire department is ranked as the most important in this analysis, and also the most satisfied in this analysis. So,
right, but let me also mention to you, the top line of the survey results is on page 25.
I'm sorry. Yeah. That's the.
Because
that's what
although
I'm
this
going
looks
through.
pretty, I can't read anything up there. I'm not sure anyone else.
What I like to look at in surveys is, in terms of the top is important, but probably the most important one in terms of planning and everything like that is what does it look like down to bottom? And if you take a look at the rankings, it's a couple of interesting comparisons. For example, the residents who rated this showed shopping. Let's see, where's the downtown? Downtown businesses were rated. There we go. If you look right in the middle, you have number 12 and number 13 on the importance scale for shopping convenience and downtown businesses. But then on the satisfaction side, shopping convenience came in at number 4 as being most satisfied, but downtown businesses were down at number 23. So they had some issues, and I believe there were comments about some of the downtown. If you look at some of the comments, you can see put some of that into perspective. The other thing too that kind of struck us as we were going through it, take a look at civility. We asked a question about city council civility, both in terms of how important it is to your residents, and then how satisfied are you with that, with the civility that occurs here in these chambers. The importance was ranked very low in the bottom, number 19, but satisfaction was also at the bottom, number 19, which means that, well, I don't know what it means, but I think that's something that maybe needs to be pursued a little bit. As I said, this is a snapshot of attitudes on the part of your residents, and we encourage you to look at more surveys, maybe focus groups or something like that, where you could help refine some of this data as you go forward. The one thing, though, that really came out, too, was city image in the satisfaction area. Now, the elements of city image, even though we didn't ask it in the survey, we discerned from the comments that people were bothered about appearance, bothered about buildings, abandoned buildings, those type of issues that I think they were relating to city image. Again, this is something that the city probably should look at in terms of additional research to find out if you want to determine attitudes regarding city image, but it's things that the citizens were concerned about. Of course, jobs were very, during this COVID atmosphere, jobs understandably were ranked low in terms of satisfaction.
Did you have a comment or question?
Yes, just one quick question, and the other one would be a comment. The question is, this is a very good snapshot, but I would like to see it broken down by demographics. I would like to see, because I'm sure the importance of these things are going to change if you're a senior citizen, if you live on the west side, you're older, younger. I would like to see those variations.
Absolutely. And actually, you will get the full Excel spreadsheet of the survey results. We didn't include it here because in some of the categories there weren't a lot of people responding, and so it didn't really change the results, and we thought it was more important that you got the overall. But we wanted to make sure that you had access to all of our data so that you could use it.
And as I said, I think that probably if you decide to do a little bit more talking to people, which I would recommend focus groups, which are a good way to do it, you can get the demographics you're looking for through the focus group things, and it can be pretty simply done.
So those focus groups would have to be done independently as a council, as opposed
You're
to...
right.
It's up to you how you would do it, how you would want to do it, and whether it would be part of this plan or something. We pursue. I think it could be an ongoing temperature check of your population at different times. I think it doesn't have to be an element of this strategic plan, but I think it's something as you measure the plan as it goes forward, because this is a live document. This is a document that will hopefully be addressed on the next 3 to 5 years. And so keeping a temperature of your residents as you're moving forward, I think is going to be very important.
And Councilman Urania, I appreciate what you're saying, that a focus group would have to be independent of the council. I think that's probably pretty wise. I think
Right.
it was clear in the survey that this was not being counted or checked by the city. It was coming to an independent group. And I think that may have been part of the reason that people were as candid as they were or as willing to comment. And when we've done surveys in the past, it's often, this gives you sort of a broad brush overview. And then you could use focus groups of specific target groups, such as businesses or downtown businesses, or poll people on an issue that you know is of concern in the city, to get them more specific about how they'd like to see it.
I had a comment, but
Yeah.
¿Querías hablar primero?
So, I think this is great, just to hear that 400 responses were actually received. I think it's a huge number. I think, in other times when we have actually polled people, whether it's businesses or anybody else out there in the community, I think the responses are very, very limited or very few. So I think this is encouraging. So these 400 responses were from the mail outs that were included on the water bills. So all of the responses came from that.
They
Yes,
were in the water
yes.
bills, yes, and thanks to, as Sue mentioned, Carla Lovatos and Miguel, they did a great job in collecting them, and we picked them up from them.
Council, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, the other thing I think is that we used other mediums like the website, like the social media, to promote that these questionnaires would be coming through the water bill. So that may have helped as well.
Yeah. So in the point also that I'm trying to make here is because, we always talk about community engagement. So, and I think this is a great opportunity to really continue this communication and this engagement. And the fact that also probably to your point, Sue, that, or someone, whoever said that, maybe because it was done through a non-city
Right.
based
Independent
entity
group.
that probably had a little bit more interest also. But the great thing that comes out of this is the engagement, the communication, the just finding out, and some of those things are new, and others are something that we've known for many
Right.
years, right? But it's just a confirmation, and I think this is just something that I'm looking forward to continue to dig deeper and
Right.
prepare. Well, I'm excited to see what the next steps might be. I think I'm getting ahead, but
That's okay.
just getting this data,
That's
I think it's just going in a great direction. So,
Good.
looking forward to whatever you have
I'm
next.
Thrilled that you like that. And
In other words, we're looking for a good outcome.
well, because our background is PR, I got to say, communications is at the heart of everything that we've done. In communications, many times we think that communications is, I said it, so it's got to happen. And really, communications is a cycle, and it only works if you listen as much as you speak. And so this really gives you all an opportunity to speak or respond to the citizens, not unlike what we're doing with you. We're giving you the information, but it means, I think sometimes people are frustrated that they are saying these things, and then they need something back. They need to know that the city is doing things. And that's not individually necessarily, but that may be something that you look at in the future as to how you get information out to your community.
I was going to go ahead and comment. What was your partner's name? I'm sorry.
Bill Gay. Bill
Bill?
Gay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to comment on Bill's observation on how city council civility comes in one of the less important categories. That's actually, at least in my eyes, not surprising. And I'll go ahead and direct myself to the council and to the public at large, because the newspapers for about like a year and a couple months, everybody knows what happens here. And I don't think it's that we disagree that's the problem. It's the nature of the disagreement and the productivity of the disagreement. We've had many conversations on the dais, on environment, on jobs, on equity.
Right.
I think what the people are most frustrated about is not so much the civility, whether or not we disagree, but how we disagree and if it's a productive disagreement that ultimately comes out in an outcome. And so we've had a lot of conversations, especially with yourself, Mr. Garcia, on this council. I think with this strategic plan, it's time to put a lot of those agreements that we do have on
Yes.
paper,
Yes.
hacer planes for this new fiscal year, and just move forward, because at the end of the day, they don't care if we fight, but what they really want to see is the progress
Yes,
on those top important services that we offer.
very, very good point.
No, and I was going to say, I think, this also validates a lot of the information out there, that in spite of what we might hear, but, I'm glad to see with the fire department, we know that's probably one of the most loved, institutions of, and that's not to say, don't get offended, the other departments, right? We all love you, but, that the fire department, it's our hospital on wheels, and also PD also, not, being on third, library, so we are seeing, what the people are also letting us know. And I think this is the time where, I know Councilman Reña has stated, we're listening to people. I think this is a clear message of what, they're telling us, right? And, I'm glad to see all these things. I mean, jobs, satisfaction, I know it's all the way at the bottom, but then if you look at the importance also, I mean, so some of the things that perhaps we don't see ourselves as being a component or maybe an institution that should be promoting that, but it is important. And I think we need to really take a step back and develop the plan, not just for the upcoming year, but when I was looking at having the strategic planning session, a plan that will be 3 to 5 years, and then for the future. So this is actually what I was looking forward to, develop a roadmap, a North Star that will lead us into the future. So, and I think, these are great steps.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But one thing I do want to caution you about, being important and being satisfied doesn't necessarily mean there aren't issues. I know
Correct.
with the fire department, with all of the departments, there are concerns with staffing, that they need assistance, even though people love them. So don't think that satisfaction means, okay, that one's off our plate. The other thing is, there were things that didn't look important, for instance, library, but their satisfaction was huge. And when you think of what the library was doing during the pandemic, when people didn't have any outlets, it was such a big part of their lives. So these are really interesting numbers, but just be mindful that they aren't easy to digest or, make decisions upon. Okay. Then, okay, so from all of that data and from the meetings that we had with you on the SWATs, we came up with, I think it's 5 goals altogether. We're going to go through the first ones in a little more depth, or we can go through each of them in depth if you care to. And the reason I was suggesting that we go in a little bit deeper with goal 1 is it is foundational to everything else you do. And it was something that we heard from every department head, and many of the council members too are frustrated by the appearance that, we have problems in the city. And so the goal is simply develop mutually supportive environment. And I skip words here to make it fit on the screen, so please bear with me. Develop a mutually supportive environment of professionalism that encourages stakeholder partnerships, teamwork, and supports city efforts to continually improve services and quality of life for residents. I think actually you have all seen all of these goals because we showed them to you roughly as we were going through your each SWOT session, and we modified them some as we talked to the council members.
I do think, want to point out one thing in the booklet, that what you have on the screen, as Sue was saying, is the goal, which is the overarching philosophical statement, so to speak. And then under that, you would have an objective, which is kind of some steps to achieve. But then under the objective, and those are the bullets that we have in gold, are really steps that we're recommending that you put to achieve the objective, which would point towards achieving the goal in this area. So that's in every one of the areas of the book that you look at. You'll see those. And some of the areas we do not have implementation steps because we felt that would be something that would be more in the territory of city management to really kind of look and find out how the implementation would go. But we do have some recommended implementation steps that we want to go through.
So,
And these first two, I think,
yeah, are we going to
the
go
first
into
two that we feel are the most important right now in terms of priority for the city to address. Go ahead, Sue. I didn't want
No,
to-
you're fine. When we talk about goals, and I know there are many different definitions that people use, but this whole process we consider to be a SMART process. So it needs to be specific. You've got a goal that's very broad, but the implementation has to be very specific. It has to be measurable. It has to be aligned to your mission. It has to be both realistic, but also a reach. You're going to go beyond just being at work on time. You're doing something that's going to improve things. And then it has to be time sensitive. It has to have deadlines. So I'm getting way ahead, but you all seem very eager to know, and I think this is important. I think one of the better things that we've done is on page 41, you'll see a tracker. It's a spreadsheet that we've provided that gives you the goal and then the objective that sort of identifies a little bit more specifically what the steps are to get these things done. It gives deadlines, and it gives a person who's responsible so that you have a way of measuring it and you have somebody who's responsible. And we can go into that more, but we have found in the past that using this, and this will be yours, you have this that you can change as you work through things. And we hope that you will meet objectives and you can move forward to continue developing things for the city. But for the professionalism goal, your objectives include things such as developing and require a standard of professionalism to improve public's trust in government and maintain respect, trust, and cooperation from other levels of government. I have heard in some of your other council meetings that you've spoken of the organizations that you belong to, that the city is represented on, which is really important. And for you, that helps the city tremendously. It puts you in a position where you gain respect. It is something that your department heads do too. And being there is part of what matters, but also bringing the respect and professionalism of the city as a whole, rather than having to sort of apologize for some of the combativeness. But if that combativeness leads to decisions, if that's necessary for the decisions that are made, that's good. But you have to be able to point to those things at the same time. I think the professionalism matters a great deal. One of the things that has been interesting for us as we've looked at the city is you've had 4 city managers in the last 5 years. Some of them were terminated, but you had some very good city managers. You've had very good department heads, and some of them have left, not because you wanted them to, but because for them to continue operating and doing the good things they could do for you, it put their own reputations at risk, and I think that's something to be mindful of now that you are in a place where you really are moving forward.
I think that this goal and that first bullet really kind of points to something that really is an overarching overarching element of the plan we have. And this is just me talking, but I've heard for years the saying only in Calexico. So looking at it from a public relations point of view, I feel that you have the capability and the citizenry to turn that around and make only in Calexico a logo and a slogan for your city.
To make it a compliment.
Make it a compliment rather than a derisive. I think you have enough capability, you have enough assets to do that. And that's what it's kind of an overarching thing in this plan. In fact, there's an area in the plan that we do call only in Calexico, where you take advantage of your location, you take advantage of where you are. You have a unique location in our country, really, in terms
On the border,
of the
but
city
also
and everything
having
like
the
that.
university here. You have a lot of things you have.
You have a lot of assets, but the first step to get there, I feel, is to really come to grips with your past and the immediate past, not the past of this council, but the past of councils that preceded you that has engendered some distrust, it's engendered some things, and so that's why we're proposing this first step being embracing a code of ethics, and you recite it at every meeting in your at the start of every meeting. Well, we're recommending you take that and you put shape to it. And a code of ethics where you have, whether it's an ethics commission, whether it's an ethics committee that you can have where you can involve citizens in it, and you can then use them as a resource as you go through issues and things like that. You could actually become an example of elected bodies in this county by doing something like that.
In the plan, we have a number of resources for you, some examples of other cities, not that you have to use what they're using, and you shouldn't because you are unique, but to just give you some examples of things that other cities have done to improve the way they behave. In talking to your department heads, there was a feeling that there could be improvements made in the way that they are communicating as a whole. And I think for the past year, for everybody, it has been such a crisis-driven time that things that ordinarily would be going on couldn't happen that way. But that sometimes is a good way of looking forward and seeing in the worst of times how we might do it to create the best of times. There was discussion about how to improve employee effectiveness and morale, and I think we've taken so long in this process. Many of the things that have been discussed have come to be. I know that there was a proposal to reward or honor employees for length of service and the good deeds that they had done, and I think that makes everybody feel much more a part of the whole. And there was interest among department heads in ways to improve customer service, to provide training, to do things that might make the way they work more efficient, to be able to serve the public better. And there was a good deal of discussion. Actually, we have looked over the last two draft public strategic plans the city has had. They both predated this council. And the need for a succession planning process was mentioned. So was ethics. So were a number of things that are here. From what we could tell, those proposed plans never went beyond being proposals. We've given you a draft. Our hope is that you don't leave it as a draft, nor do you leave it as a book that just gets put on a shelf. Everything we've done is really intended to help you keep this document alive and as something that you can use as you move forward, as you complete goals or complete the objectives, you may find other ways of keeping that going. But that is our intention. So succession planning is a hugely important thing. I know that there may be costs involved in terms of providing training for people for future promotion, but it's something seriously to consider. And again, not just in this city, many organizations are facing issues of that sort. And then because we're public relations people, we think in terms of public relations, but really we're talking about developing a way to communicate with your residents, both in terms of doing polls or focus groups and doing things that allow the council to speak to the public. So that's that first goal. Any thoughts, ideas, things that you'd like to see changed? Okay, we'll move forward. The other one that we think is hugely important, considering what you all have been going through and where you're at now with the new issues of retirement costs that are eating into your budget. The goal on everybody's mind, including all of you council members, was prioritizing the city's fiscal responsibilities and the steps needed to ensure its sustainability. And that included such things as, and again, some of these things may have come to pass. We were talking about increasing revenue through economic development. I know, have you hired a economic development?
We're in the process of finalizing that recruitment.
Okay. As I said, these things have been discussed during the process, and we may have said things that have already come to pass. So if so, then you have objectives you can mark off. Watching your budgeting process, which is always not the fun time of year, because whoever has more money than they know what to do with, I'd like to try that. It's really important that the city maintain adequate reserves, because we never know when we're going to have another crisis. Whoever could have imagined a COVID? So it's important, even as you want to, even as there's a need for new employees, to maintain that. The COVID relief funds that you're going to be getting, have you received?
We received the first installment.
First installment. And there's even with that second installment, there's likely more coming down the pike. Those really, as tough as it is to not use it for other things you need, doing those things as one-time only expenses is so important, because anything that you spend on an ongoing thing means you've committed yourself to a continuing cost in the future. There was some concern raised about employees not all having the same access to forms that they need or information that they need, and there was a considerable amount of discussion about the benefit that might be had by putting more information on a website that employees could reach. There was also interest in improving city processes for efficiencies, and then the need to develop partnerships with the county, state, federal government to assist the city in gaining funds, but also putting you in a position where you have the lead on such things as the New River. So those were. There was some discussion about reviewing vehicle and equipment purchases on cost versus saving bases, and prioritized plan to develop, to restore appropriate levels of service in departments when funding becomes available. Okay, and then prioritize.
Those were the first two goals. Are there questions or comments about those first two before we move into the next series are going to be some of the traditional economic development, things like that we'll definitely talk about. But Any comments or feedback that you have on the first two goals that come to mind immediately?
Just a question. When are we going to define all of those steps that were presented? When are we actually going to do those things? Is that independently council, or is that something
What we have, in Sue mentioned the tracker in the back of the book.
Mhm.
We have a column that says priority, and rather than us trying to tell you, okay, by January 13th, 2022, you're going to have this done, we're recommending that you set priorities, and then you decide based upon your needs, based upon your budget and what you have, what those dates would be. But the priorities are things that we're recommending. Some priorities, like that first goal, is really mostly priority A. And then fiscal is a priority A, most of that too. And then let your staff then take those priorities and attach dates to them based upon what's doable with staffing, because you have some staffing shortages, we know that, and it's not as if your department heads have anything else better to do than look at strategic plans. So it's going to have to be done in a way that you can work into your work product. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So beyond that, it will come back to the city council. We're going to give you some next steps that we think make sense. The city council always decides the direction, and then you have a staff implement it. The things that we came up with in your goals and objectives are things that were really general agreements among the council folks in your individual meetings and with the department heads. However, as you weigh through this, it's possible we left out something that was really important and near and dear to your hearts. There may be things in this priority is economic development. I'm not going to go through all of the goals that are there. We also talked about steps. One of the fourth goal was defining Calexico as a preeminent destination city.
That's the only in Calexico element that we're calling. I think that you have a lot of potential there.
And the fifth goal is developing infrastructure maintenance, and this has long-term kind of community-changing big projects. Some of them were exciting things, and I think it's very important to have here, even if some of these things are major construction that there isn't money for right now. I know while we were talking to you, there was a great deal of concern about low-income housing. Sometimes just having things on your plan, having them in your mind, makes them come to you. I recall there was a tremendous need while we were going in the process with you for a new ambulance, and there was such frustration that you had to call ambulances from other places, and lo and behold, an ambulance became available and was donated to the city, or you got an ambulance from AMR, I think it was. Things happen because they're here. And sometimes things happen because we have in our mind a way that something should look, but another opportunity comes along that meets that same need, and it looks a little different. And so having those things in your plan means that you're more aware of the possibilities. And that is why we kept those in there. And we hope that they do come about quicker. Certainly things are going on. One of the things for the grand plans are creating a habitat area in the new river bottom, making it available for ecotourism. As a bird watcher, I would be thrilled with that. But you have money now, and the city is the lead in improving the new river bottom. That's exciting stuff. It isn't city money, but sometimes money becomes available. And conversely, we had department heads tell us that grant funds that they had gone after didn't come this way because of the city's fiscal reputation. So that's why the early goals on the fiscal responsibility matter and the ethics and professionalism matter, because if you don't look, if the city does not appear to be doing more than professing these as important things, some opportunities go by the wayside. So we hope, let me fast forward to the next steps that we are going to recommend to you. We're saying we want you to have a chance to review this document and consider modifications. It's possible. Again, we had so much data from you all. It was exciting. It was the gift of riches. You don't usually do that, but there were many great ideas. If we left something out that really is important, it needs to be added in. And while we're saying there, make any changes that you need. If we know we're dumping a lot of information on you today, if you'd like to take it and review it and have another workshop, we'd be very happy to do that after you've had a chance to digest this a little bit. So that would be one thing. We hope that you will formally accept or adopt the strategic plan so that you can use it as a roadmap, that it becomes a serious living document that you're going to use for at least the next 3 to 5 years. And it is a living document. So you may look through this periodically and say, wait a minute, that goal doesn't do what we need anymore. We need to modify it. Or the goal may be great, but we need to change the objectives. So we think it's very important to review. Well, obviously, you're going to turn to your city manager and say, let's begin implementation, which would, in our mind, mean that you would have the city manager come back to you.
This plan also really is, I don't think I'm sharing anything that you're not already aware of, but this should become a document that you look at every year at budget time. And in fact, many cities, the county actually use, they tie the goal or tie the objective to the budget line item. And so this is a way to keep this plan alive as you move forward. And that's what the tracker is all about, that I think there's a slide on that too. That really help you keep this thing in track.
Doing it once a year at the budget is really important, but we think you may need to also review this plan as the fiscal issues change, as funding becomes available. We know that this is a really tough time with COVID and all of the things that have happened in your past. As you get an economic development director here and things start happening in Calexico that make more revenue available, don't spend it before it's coming in, but if you see this new revenue stream, you may decide at that point that there are specific things, areas that you want to use. And then this plan can be very helpful in that. Or you may see other things that you want to include in that. Even though this is sort of a 3 to 5 year plan, it is a living document. So it should be changing as you go through it. And at some point, you get to a point where you're ready to do something more or different as you move forward. And the other thing that we think is hugely important is the fact, and actually several of you mentioned it in the individual SWATs with the council members, and the department heads mentioned it. You have a community here that is so community oriented. People will come forward. And I think the survey was a way of capturing some of that. Again, they didn't have to add their comments to get in the drawing. So they were doing it because They wanted to be a part of it. I loved, there were a number of survey comments about thanking you for listening to them or for asking for their opinion. As we talked about earlier, there are many different ways of using this. The business community is of specific concern. They may be someone that, they may be a target group that you want to include in a survey or in a follow-up kind of meeting. We did this survey, and there was a good deal of discussion about should we put it in the utility bills. Some people don't look at the utility bills, and we knew that was an issue. We could have put it in social media, and we opted not to do that because we were concerned that we could have people sending in, 5, 10, 15 surveys because they wanted a chance at that drawing, as opposed to getting a more broad response of the community. When you look through the spreadsheet, you'll see that there are some age groups that did not have a lot of representation in the surveys. There may be other ways that you want to go after those folks. We had talked about doing a Survey Monkey, and we're concerned that that could exclude a lot of folks in Calexico, and we didn't want to do that. So there may, again, this is not a scientific survey, but we thought this was the best way to get sort of a broad-based view of the community. And it's well worth considering doing it further, not necessarily this way, but also we had enough people looking at their utility or their water bills that it occurred to me that you could use that as a way of communicating with residents. You could tell them about new hours at the pool, or new things that would be available, or what the city council has accomplished. You could use that. Not everybody's going to get it, but the amazing thing about communications is it used to be very simple. We used to be a nice little community and we all read the newspaper. And that isn't the case anymore. Now you have people who use Facebook, and you have people who are on Instagram, and you have people who are on Instagram or Facebook who aren't using TikTok, and trying to find how to reach everybody is very difficult. So using social media to sort of announce that this is coming out in your utility bills is a way that we can do it. The library seems to have a lot of draw. That could be a place that you could be announcing things to. So those are just some off-the-cuff ideas that I think are worth looking at because you have a community that very much wants to be a part of it. And I already gave you a sneak peek, but the tracker, I think, would be a very effective tool to use, the implementation tracker. And it could be something in some cities or the county. For a period of time, they were using that almost quarterly to see what we've done. Have we done anything? To get nervous if it didn't come to pass. So the original of that is actually an Excel spreadsheet, so it's very easy to change. What you have here is a PDF that looks nice, but...
Do you have a slide on that, Sue? A slide on the tracker? On the PowerPoint?
No, we
thought we
didn't,
did.
because it was so hard to... It's so expansive. So I didn't.
I thought we
I
did.
did. I did email the whole booklet, but I'm not sure that using the PDF on the screen is going to be very helpful.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Just a very brief comment. I'm very interested in the conversation you're having on how to do surveys and how we can do surveys as a council moving forward. I think one of the resources that was not mentioned is our partnership, not just with other agencies, but also with nonprofits that service great parts of our community, right? You have thousands of people registered, you have their names, phone numbers, and we can definitely do some kind of random sampling there, random sampling here to get different sections of the community. And our medical partners, of course, come into some data sharing agreements with either Heffernan or Dr. Vo or Calexico Wellness, because they're already seeing the community as patients,
Right.
add a little 5-minute survey after the visit, with some kind of comprehensive data sharing agreement, and,
Good idea.
It could save us some money.
Yeah. When we were talking about businesses and doing surveys with businesses, it occurred to me that you have a great database of businesses with business licenses. And that would give you the opportunity in some ways to do a randomized survey. But it also gives you the chance to form a focus group from people there who would be willing to share their opinions and ideas.
Yeah.
So,
Anything else?
is that were there any more slides on the PowerPoint, or?
I think.
Yeah, oh, that's, yeah. I thought we did have there's a
You're
tracker.
right. And again, that is pushed to the point that I pointed to the audience. I'm not sure that you can really see what's there. But as Bill was saying earlier, we've given you priorities as opposed to deadlines. The priorities, some of the priorities were things that don't look like they have a lot of cost, but they are a foundation to the things that you need moving forward. And those would be A priorities. But it is for you all to decide specific times, you working with your department heads to get that. And that truly is the last of the slides. So questions, comments, discussion? We really like this photo that is actually on your website. And we thought it was so great to use because you both have a beautiful city hall. But the photo also shows your whole community. And really, everything that we've done is not just with this select group here. It is for the broader community. If we're happy to stay and answer questions, we would be happy to receive emails, phone calls from you, and if you would like to set up a further workshop, when you've had a chance to digest this, we'd be very happy to do that, to help you move forward. Yes?
So just to be clear, the data for this strategic plan is available. Where is it available in Excel format?
I'll be your source.
Excellent.
For the information.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
So one of the things we can do, one, thank you so much. What you've summarized in a little over an hour is the work of months now. And I think one of the things that I was asked was to make sure that we had a credible, effective process to put together a strategic plan. And I think Reliance was able to accomplish it. I think a couple of times they've noted that they've worked with other government entities in the county. So they definitely understand our community. And I think that was extremely helpful in the process, considering that here in our city we just have a lot of things to tackle. So with that said, I think what we can do, Mayor and the rest of the council, we can digest this information, which there's plenty of. And one of the things we can do, I would propose, just because in my experience, along with my staff, to work with Reliance, is that we can always sit down and have a conversation about specific things.
Yeah.
We can actually do that. We can make arrangements as you direct me to. And as soon as that happens and we're satisfied with that, we can follow up the next steps as it's recommended and just memorialize the document once and for all so this city can have a strategic plan.
That's true.
Miguel, is the first time in the city of Calexico
one strategic plan for whatever year in the past?
Based on my research, there have been prior efforts, but for one reason or another, they were not completed. So this time around, but I also want to state that the work that was previously done, even in draft form, I don't even think it got close to this. So with that said, you have in your hands the opportunity moving forward, like we want to handle things present and future, is adopting something that can really be the roadmap that we're all hungry for.
I like this strategic plan. Congratulations. And my surprise is for the comment for the residents. I like it.
Thank you. Well,
Thank
and
you.
you should. It's your work. I mean, this.
I know.
Part of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think this practice is very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that also, when I was thinking about this strategic plan, this is something that I don't think I was envisioning this. I think this went above and beyond. I think, on your plan right here, I see, on the data that was presented, right? I think there are quite a few key things that are mentioned, right? Of course, from what the residents, are telling us that we know, right? It's a confirmation and affirmation of things. And then also, they're also giving us the next steps too, by them telling us how do they feel about, what we're offering as services, what would they like to see too. And then also, I think, you also touch on stakeholders, partnerships. And I think, the key stakeholders here is the community. And I think the community really turned out, 400 strong. And I think that's what we were looking for. Of course, we'll continue to build those other partnerships with other stakeholders. The county, the state, the feds, we're happy to have, our supervisor, here for most of our meetings, which is great. And that's a very strong, partnership. IID. So again, things that are there already, but we just need to make sure that we continue to strengthen those relationships. So all those strategies that are going to come up from this plan, and we're going to be able to, go back to you and probably help us out in putting that plan, make it look nice and make it available to the community, because, we have to take it back to them also. I mean, just the way that we took to them, to get their feedback, I think now it's also on all of us to take back what they share with us. Because usually when you send something, you're expecting at least a response. And we know that a lot of people now are watching our meetings, which is great, but some of them might not. So we owe it to them to take it back to them, to continue to get engaged, to continue to get more people, to continue to find ways. And I think all of us here are, just adding to those ideas, from going to CBOs and maybe other ways that, we're not thinking, other ways of reaching out, for the most part, I was thinking that maybe the traditional way of outreach to individuals through mail, we usually think that that's done, We have to go through email, we have to go through other media, but, we were proven wrong here. And I'm happy to see that. And I'm happy to see that we're connecting, regardless of the media that we use or the resource that we use. But I think we have a very clear picture here. That's what I was looking for. At a personal level, that's what I was looking for. And this will help a great deal. Of course, we have to look at other things, how we're going to make this happen. Timelines and, attach names to that. I think that's what's important also. But kudos, thank you for your work, outstanding, appreciate it. And looking forward to continue working with you.
Yeah, and I will add on, thank you so much for this excellent work that was done. And again,
like our pro tem mayor is saying, that, reaching out to the public, and, we're doing it the old way, the old-fashioned way, through mail. And I guess we're going to continue doing that, and this is a good way to start and continue, so we could get that positive feedback, or the feedback that we most need. Thank you again.
I wanted to let you know that we have given a PDF copy of this to the city clerk, so she's going to put it on your website. But it also occurred to me, thinking of the old-fashioned way, because your library seems to get a lot of traffic, you could put a copy there as well. And we have given you copies for the department heads, and we'll be glad to give you a copy for that. Well, she would get a copy, but you could give her an extra.
And we'll make copies available at the library too, so people
I
can see it.
think we can actually make a formal announcement via our mediums with the community that we would have copies available for anybody that wants at the library. So I can coordinate with Mr. Gaspy on that.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr. Arena? Mr. Romo?
Just a thank you.
No? Okay, so here's my take on all this. Well, the community obviously has spoken, right, based on the surveys. And you did say something about results, right? Results are very important. If you have a work plan, but you don't have results at the end, because they're all measurable. And we do have, you've done your excellent job. I've been involved with these type of projects. They're very tedious, they're very comprehensive, but it's just a map for us. But it's going to be dependent upon us, all 5 of us up here, to get together and work together to get this thing forward for the community of Calexico. And so I'm really looking forward to work with my cohort, Mr. Ureña, Romo, Mr. Garcia, and our former mayor, Fernandez. And so we owe it to the city of Calexico to move forward with this thing. I'm looking forward to that, looking forward with working with Mr. Figueroa, the staff, working with all of the department heads, and obviously our stakeholders with our community members. Moving forward, I'm really looking forward for this. I'm really happy that this is roadmap for us. We can get some results. So anything else? Nothing? No more to add? Okay.
Just on behalf of Reliance Public Relations, I want to thank the city of Calexico. It's been enjoyable working with the council and the staff on putting this together. And this is really your work too. So
thank you. So as a point of reference, point of order, I'm sorry. This is a discussion and potential action item. Yeah. So I believe we need to act on it. We need to give some kind of direction.
I think at this point, Mayor, the direction can be for us to continue to dive into the document. If there is anything in particular that we would want to see included, we still have the time to work with Reliance to make those additions if needed. And then what we can do is formalize and complete the process by bringing it to council for formal adoption. Okay. At this point, we've had discussion, I have direction, and I can proceed with it.
Okay, we're okay with that, Mr. Arena, Romo?
Yes, I would just say, or a question is, say once we're done with defining the economic goals and all, those are going to come as action items to the table, right?
So what we'll do, Councilman, on that is, we as a city, you as a governing body, can adopt the actual plan once you deem it's ready to be final and approved.
Okay.
After that, then it's going to be up to myself, my staff, to collaborate with you and get the ball rolling on implementing every item.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's good. Direction.
Okay, well, thank you. I moved to adjourn. Anybody second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Good night.